Rubyvale Gem Gallery is a unique family-run business situated in the heart of the central Queensland gem fields on the Tropic of Capricorn. They mine and produce some of the most exquisite sapphire jewellery in Australia. Today you will follow the story of the mining methods used to retrieve these sapphires and the precise and artistic skills required for the gem cutting and jewellery design. Over 50 million years ago, about the time of the breakup of Gondwana land, sapphires were formed deep below the Earth's mantle and then blasted to the Earth's surface via volcanoes. The sapphires were eroded into ancient riverbeds, which are now the alluvial gravels that Peter has mined underground since 1974.
So you can see here I've worked into the old workings, and the old workings of the tunnels, the height of their roof was there, and this is the original floor. So they took out the wash and have actually propped it, and these are the remains of the old props, maybe from 1914 or before the First World War. They would have been ironbark props like this, and they've completely decomposed. The old timers have also backstowed, so that rock and gravel is where they've thrown the gravel back around the props in the old tunnels they've finished. So it's obvious they got onto a fairly good patch in that bottom layer, 15 inches to 18 inches thick. There is quite often a few sapphires in the next layer up, and if there are rocks in layers further up as the riverbeds sort of washed up on banks, there'll be sapphires collected up in high patches as well, but the old timers would have gone right under that. This is where I started off this set of mining tunnels on the Desperado, and you can see all the holes in the wall, the little from the jackhammer marks. So all this was done with a jackhammer and the wheelbarrow with a shovel. So quite a myriad of tunnels that travels right along the side of the old workings. But we always put the props around the entrance of a shaft, around the collar of the shaft, because that can be a vulnerable area for separation. Well, up on the top of banks, the wave action scoots away the lights up, and the heavy stuff gets lagged behind as long as there's something to catch it. So that's what we're looking for. So it can be super rich in a place like this, and then 3 or 4 metres or 10 metres on the side, just sandy and light stuff. It's amazing in a great big riverbed, and all this would have looked like, this wash with the clay and that in it, would have looked more like the gravel coming out of the back of a concrete truck. It's in a massive flood, it's just like a muddy sort of mass. Obviously with the old timers working with a pick and shovel, they had to be on an incredibly rich ground. They nearly needed to see the sapphires as they were digging. But with this digger and with the electric gear that we've got and the amount of dirt that I can move, which is up to 10 cubic metres a day, I can afford to take the edges of the wash that wasn't rich enough for the old timers. So there's still going to be lots of sapphires left in the ground. In fact, you could take all of this and there'll still be sapphires in it. So even though it's been worked for 100 years from the turn of the century, I'll work it for another 20 years. I've been working for 30 years. I've got another 20 years of doing it, and somebody will still work this ground for 20 or 30 years after I've finished. A good day's digging sometimes might be a handful of sapphires. Other days there might be only a few, and you just got to say to yourself, tomorrow it'll be better. So the dirt goes up to the surface by this half cubic metre bucket. It goes over the hoist, dumps onto the grizzly, which separates out the huge rocks, The rest of the gravel goes via the bin and conveyor into the trommel, which screens out the fine sand, separates out some of the bigger rocks, and all of the gravel to the right size gets washed or sluiced over the pulsators. We gather the sapphires in the pulsator by bouncing the gravel over those riffles, which is separating the sapphires by gravity and water. Well, the ancient riverbed did the same thing with the bouncing of the waves and the currents going around. Okay, so what we got here, we can see the ironstone and the sapphires at the bottom of the tray, mostly in the first tray. So this is the heavy concentrate. There's a yellow one. Quite nice blue. So people take home a little sample bag of this concentrate and hand sort out the last of the little sapphires and zircons that are in these bags, and quite often there's a very nice little sapphire that can pass it into a gem. That makes a really good souvenir. I started the shop in 1988 because we found we were evaluating the best sapphires, but we needed somewhere to sell them. So the whole operation of the gem cutting, the jewellery making and running the shop is all about being able to sell the sapphires that I dig out from underground. So all of that is so that I can keep up this addiction for digging sapphires. And that's the important part. And in the 70s, we just sold it to the Thais, and you'd work all week, dig out a parcel of sapphires, sell it, drink a carton of beer on Sunday, go back to work on Monday. But it's now that we follow the whole process through, and it's quite a major operation. People come here looking for the products, the genuine products out of the ground. The jewellery process is lost wax casting. The wax models are invested in plaster, burnt out overnight, and then the gold is directly cast into the plaster Paris mould. Well, we started the Devonshire Teas because people would come and we'd chat to them on the veranda, and they'd buy a sapphire and we'd tell them all about it, and we'd maybe do some jewellery designs, and we'd find that we were offering cups of coffee on the veranda, and people enjoyed it. We created a nice garden, a nice atmosphere to work in, and so the Devonshire Tea aspect was something that people could easily identify with and it was simple, straightforward, and Nettie has been making those beautiful scones for years. And you could stay a night in our beautiful self-contained unit right next to the gallery. With each piece of jewellery sold, we provide a certificate with all the details plus photograph.
The highly skilled and dedicated team at Ruby Vale Gem Gallery, Peter, Eileen, Nettie and Mary, invites you to come and share this experience.